Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. I'm your host, Jill L. Ferguson, and today in our what I believe is our 52nd episode, my guest is Domenic Tamborriello. How are you today?
All in all, doing okay. Hope you are
Yeah.
too. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so you have a master's degree in social work, and you've spent the majority of your career in as a therapist, right? Um,
Correct?
Counselor. So talk to me a little bit about that. Why did you go into that of all things? And
Oh, um, yeah. Let me just say this.
Mhm.
Kind of fell into it. I didn't set out to
Okay.
be a social worker. I didn't set out to be a therapist. Now that I am, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
This is what I've always done. I've been doing it since I was about 6, and I'm very blessed to be able to do what I think I was brought here to do.
Yeah. So you were the person when you were young that everybody came to for help with things? Is that what I'm guessing that's what that means when you from the time you were 6?
Let me tell you a story. I was my parents ran a boarding home, so people came, people went. These things
Mhm.
aren't around so much anymore. But I was used to a lot of people coming and going. Another thing I was used to was my parents arguing a lot. I remember going to bed once when I was about 8 years old and saying to myself as I was getting into bed, wow, nobody yelled at each other all day.
Wow.
So I did have a day like that, and that memory has stayed with me from that day till now, which is, close to 70 years later.
Yeah.
And so I tell you that story to tell you this. One day I was just tootling around looking for something to do. I decided I would go upstairs and visit what I would now call the nice young couple that was living upstairs. So I walked up the stairs, and their door to their apartment was open, and I could hear them arguing, yelling. And to me, that was like, yeah. And so it didn't occur to me to turn around and go back.
Mm. And,
What I
you were a child at this point in
I was
this
about
story?
6,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so, I remember standing in the doorway to their apartment, and what I remember, I guess I distracted them the way a little kid would, and what I remember is the woman sitting across from me at the kitchen table with her elbow resting on the table. Her husband was standing behind her with his hands on her shoulders, and I talked to them for a little while, and at some point, I said to the woman, "Well, do you love him?"
As only a 6-year-old could ask, right? Yeah.
And she's kind of enthusiastically shook her head. And I looked at the guy and I said, "Well, do you love her?" And he got this kind of, oh, shucks kind of look on his face. And he said he did. And I said, "Why don't you kiss?" So that was my first marriage counseling.
I love
as a
it.
young as a young therapist, there were times when in my office I would be in the midst of a bickering couple that I didn't know what to do with, and I stopped them and I said to them what I said to this couple when I was 6, and it has never failed to help.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And you've never had somebody say, "Oh, I'm not kissing that person."
no,
I guess if you're in therapy, right, or going to therapy to try to make it work, then you're probably going to try to make it work.
most people, most times.
Yeah,
Yeah, almost always.
yeah.
You're walking in the door, there's some part of you that wants things to be different.
Mhm. So if you you didn't realize that that was your calling, earlier on in your schooling, right? What did you study as an undergrad?
History. I
Okay.
was a social studies major. I got a degree to be a social studies teacher for high school, junior high, and high school kids.
And did you ever do that?
Never took a job doing that.
Okay.
The only teaching job I ever formally took was
Mhm.
to teach at the University of Michigan School of Social Work,
Okay.
and try to help other people become better
Mhm.
therapists.
Yeah. So, what did you do right after you graduated undergrad?
I went into private practice.
Oh, okay.
I found out later
Yeah.
that that was not to be done. I
Okay.
was
Yeah.
supposed to wait 2 years,
Yeah.
but I actually, took a job. A friend of mine who, uh, was working up in Flint, um, got me to work at, an inpatient alcohol and drug rehab center.
Mhm.
I did that for a number of months, but even while I was doing that, I was starting my own private practice in Ann Arbor.
Okay. So that was after your master's degree. After your
Yeah.
bachelor's degree, what did you do? Did you go
Oh,
straight to your master's or?
no, no, it was actually
Yeah.
9 years in between.
Okay.
In between, I took a job at the Human Rights Commission for the state government in West Virginia,
Okay.
and, that was because I had met the woman that would, soon become my wife, and she and I worked there together. We were both political activists, and that's how we met.
Mhm.
So we met in the civil rights movement, and she was able to show me that women too were discriminated against and stereotyped and funneled very narrowly, similarly to how Black people were. So I was able to understand something about sexism. She and I became co coordinators of a task force on credit and employment discrimination for the National Organization for Women. So I
Oh,
was a
wow.
card-carrying member of NOW for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Uh, when I got back to when I
We need
finally
more
dec
male feminists, don't we? Yeah.
well, we sure do, we sure do. So I was out there marching for the
Mhm.
Equal Rights Amendment, in DC, a massive march, in hopes that that would have passed. We came close, but it didn't. Uh, when I went back to school at, University of Michigan School of Social Work, for my first year, I was invited into the women's studies department.
Mhm.
Now, at that point, UM's women's studies department was a kind of a hotbed of feminist research and thought and writing. And so
Yeah.
to be invited in was a kind of a tough ticket, but they knew of me, knew of my history, knew that I and my former wife had been very involved in uh, doing workshops about racism and sexism. And I and she, uh, prior to going back to grad school, got involved in something called the men's movement.
Mhm.
So she and I became, uh, in 1983, we were the primary organizers of the 8th National Conference on Men and Masculinity. I got the University of Michigan to host that with me. We had 500 people from around the country and beyond for a 5-day event. Um,
Wow.
when I was in school, uh, if you were on the track to become a therapist, you had to declare an area of specialization. So you could specialize in working with the elderly, specialize in working with kids, families,
Mhm.
mentally ill. You could specialize in working with women, but you couldn't specialize in working with men.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Talk about a little bit of discrimination, huh?
So I got the university to approve a special program, and I graduated with what I think may be the first degree of its kind in the country, which was an MSW degree specializing in working with men.
Oh,
So,
and it was men in general as opposed to men that were veterans or had some kind of subcategory attached to them, right? Yeah,
that's right, men.
yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in what we used to call a ghetto, sometimes now referred to as the hood, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my earliest years were very immersed in the Black experience. So I'm very, very comfortable with Black folk
Mhm.
and have always been a bridge between Black folk and white folk. And that's how I ended up in the civil rights movement, because it wasn't just about some do-gooder notion. It was about
Mhm.
people I loved who were being harmed.
Yeah.
So I I have a very sophisticated understanding of issues of bigotry and discrimination and prejudice. I don't want to call it racism.
Mhm.
I call it colorism, because I don't think that one race discriminates against another race. There's only one race, and it happens to be the human race. And to call it racism perpetuates the notion that Black folks aren't of this race. So I prefer to use the term colorism for that. So I have some considerable expertise in working with Black folk, and very considerable expertise in working around women's issues,
Mhm.
very considerable expertise around working with men's issues. So, in terms of gender stuff, what I tell people is that, given my years in the National Organization for Women, given my time in the Women's Studies Department at the University of Michigan, I've had a window into women's stories and understand them much, much more than many of my brothers. So, what I tell people is that I speak women's language. It's not my native tongue. I speak it with an accent,
Mhm.
but I pretty much understand what they're trying to say. So, that allows me to be a really effective bridge between males and females. So, I can say to a man, oh, I can say to a woman, okay, listen, I'm going to talk to your husband and I'm going to tell him something, and you please correct me if what I'm telling him is wrong. And so then I say to the husband, what your wife is saying is that when she asks you time and again to please call the doctor and you won't, what you hear is her trying to control you or even criticize you. And what she wants you to hear is how important you are to her,
Mhm.
how much she cares about you, and how much it would hurt for her to lose you. And would you please call the doctor? She said that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
that takes the work that Deborah Tannen's done so much further than, you know, eh, yeah.
yeah. So in a way, I speak men's language
Mhm.
a little better and a little differently than many other folk as well.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like all of these things have informed your current practice, right?
Of
And your
course,
current the your and help your current clients.
I hope.
And yeah, and that over the last what 40 years or more that you've been doing this, right? That they've had the benefit of a very kind of unique life experience on
Oh,
your part.
uh-huh.
Um, yeah, and it certainly seems like you're primed for this as your one of your contributions to humanity.
Yeah, yeah. I've done other things. I can do other things,
Mhm.
but doing this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky, very blessed to be able to do what I was going to do anyway.
In your practice, you have I know you run some evening groups, and there's a poetry therapy class
Absolutely.
or group, and then you have a men's group or something like that, right? Two men's groups. What are
Yeah.
the difference between the two of them?
One is for younger men, one is for older men.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Nice.
The younger men's group has one young man in it who's not quite 20 yet,
Nice.
and that goes into the low 40s, and everybody in the older men's group is over 60.
Mhm. Do you find that people in Gen Z, the millennials and Gen Z, are more open to therapy than maybe older generations have been?
Depends.
Okay.
I would say that when younger men are open, they are more open than the older men. But men who walk in the office, again, there's at least part of them that wants something to be different, that wants something to be better. And if I can honor that and reach them and speak their language and help them feel less threatened, less criticized,
Mhm.
they tend to stay. There are very few percentage wise uh, males who, once they come in, they tend to stay. So so it's very few that don't do that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think about like people venting, right? Or maybe that's not quite the right word, but being very emotive on social media, right? And so it seems to me that there's a generation that's been more than willing to talk about their feelings more, even if it's kind of in a to strangers, if you will, or not,
Uh,
genuine friends, than there has been in the past. Because I remember just generations of people thinking you just need to suck it up and deal with it, right?
Absolutely, and that's still the case for a lot of males
Mhm.
because we grew up with that message. Any male, 50 and above, they're still heavily immersed in that as a belief system,
Mhm.
and so it can take a little to help them consider other possibilities, other options, and opportunities.
I think it also makes them not relate as well or understand as well the generations that's younger than them, right? That does are willing to articulate their whatever they're thinking or feeling. Um, as there's this like, why do they have to be so emotional kind of attitude by some people?
It's a fantasy that males aren't emotional.
Yeah.
We are.
Mhm.
Um, One of the differences is that females, again, this is a generality, this is not all women,
Mhm.
this is most women, most times, but most women can process what they're thinking by speaking it aloud.
Mhm.
And it looks like you're really sharing your emotions more easily. And in some ways, that's true. Males tend to process internally.
Mhm.
So we're thinking about things, struggling with things, whatever, on an emotional basis, but we do it more internally. In terms of expressing emotions, put a man on a softball team, put a man in front of the Super Bowl
Mhm.
or some event like that, and you'll see a whole rainbow of emotions.
Yeah.
A softball game going, yes, this, oh no, come on, you can do it. So there's this permission for males to express emotions about things that are peripheral to
Mhm.
their life, and less permission, not less ability, less less permission to talk about emotions when it's about things that are more central
Mhm.
to their lives.
Well, what's one thing you wish more people would know or understand?
What's one thing I wish people would know or understand?
Mhm. I mean, based on all your years of experience and
Yeah,
work.
there's so much less to be afraid of than you think.
Mm.
So much less. All this fear that you have about what people think about you, they're just as afraid of what you're thinking about them.
Yeah.
And they're really not thinking about you that way anyway.
Mhm.
Jack Nicholson said, I don't care what you think about me. I don't think about you at all.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of much, much, much more the case than our fear-based selves would like to think.
Mhm.
There's so much less to be afraid of than we have been led to believe.
Mhm. So it's kind of like the emotional scarcity model, right? Not just the economic scarcity model that the whole discipline of economics is built on, but but
Yeah,
it's we have that as far as our emotions go too. We're just we think it's always there's a fear there, or what if? How am
yeah,
I going to come across? And yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That what if thinking, that acting as
Mhm.
if something is so before really knowing that it's so, thinking
Mhm.
as if something is true before you really honestly find out whether that's the case or not.
Mhm. So, so you've done something a little different in your personal relationship with your spouse than a lot of people have, right? Which is you have set the intention to make your spouse feel that she's the most special and loved person in any room she walks into,
That's
right?
true.
Why did you come up with that, or how did you come up with that, and what's that look like in practice?
When I was a very young man, I was engaged to the wrong woman.
Okay.
A friend of mine, my best friend, stopped by just to say hi and have a few laughs. We spent a pleasant little time together, and he went on his way. And the woman I was living with at the time said to me, "Why is it that whenever we have company, you're always so much fun and you always have so much to say? But if it's just you and me here?" And she was right. And, again, she was the wrong person for me to be engaged to, and that ended. Um, but
And
that moment,
did you realize it was her, or was it you?
no, I knew it was me.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
knew it was me. Yeah. But the me that was there really didn't want to really foster a connection with her.
And were you uncomfortable being your authentic self around her? Was that part of it, or just
I was in my very young 20s.
okay?
So who knows anything about authentic self
Oh
then,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It was all about image
hmm
back then.
yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is that something about that moment let me know that I really was taking her for granted and I really wasn't trying to be a really good partner. In some ways I was, but
hmm
not that I was cruel, but
hmm
she was just the wrong person for me. And so
And,
moments like that,
and you were probably the wrong person for her too,
oh,
right?
yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. You know,
hmm
I don't mean to sound like I'm blaming at all.
No, I
It was just the
yeah.
chemistry. The
hmm
chemistry was off. We weren't right for each other. And so, something about that moment stayed with me. And so somehow I ended up learning that if I wanted to seem interesting to someone else, I had to be interested. Right?
hmm
So, long story short, when I took my wedding vows with my current wife, part of the vows said, I will strive to earn and deserve your love every day of my life. And that's a goal I have. And so I want Sherry to know deep in her bones that she is the most loved woman in any room she enters. So I challenged myself by asking, what would I be doing if I wanted her to fall in love with me? What would I be doing if I wanted her to love me? Because a lot of males, we can't help but take our partners for granted, males and females. You're with them for an extended period of time, years at a time. You begin to understand them. There's certain generalizations that can turn into assumptions, and we shut off trying to discover who we are with. Okay, so I was married for 22 years in my first marriage. Okay, now it's going on 10 years with Sherry, and we could say, well, I've been married to her for 10 years, or I was married once for 22. I know what to expect. But the truth is, I've never been married to her for 10 years. This is new. This is different. Who is she today? What can I do to be open to discovering who she is? What's important to her? How can I really see her through some fresh eyes? What would I be doing if I wanted her to love me? So a lot of males get burned out, tied up, bored with current relationship, and then they get sparked by someone else, and all of a sudden they're enthusiastic, they're attentive. We males for the first 90 days in relationships, we're wonderful. we're we're great. We really are very patient. We're good listeners. Oh, sure, let me help you with that. No, no, really, it's no problem. You know, generous with our time and all of that. Open. We go out on dates. We do what? We sit across from the woman at dinner and do what? We talk. And then we get married and we
None
sit,
of us looking on the cell phone.
yeah, and we're sitting across catty corner from each other at the table, not across.
Mhm.
We end up with not very much eye to eye contact over the course of a day. We're sitting next to each other on a couch like this. We're sitting next to each other in a car like this. And we don't really make time for true eye to eye contact.
Or you're
Oh,
eating your dinner watching TV or something,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
sure. So we have to make effort to fall in love again and again and again if we want the relationship to be fun,
Yeah.
if we want it to be rewarding.
And I think that that's true because a lot, I mean, even with our friendships, we kind of take the friends for granted too if it's a long-term friendship.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
So it's really about staying awake. How can I be awake to who I am? How can I be awake to what I want?
Mhm.
How can I be honest about that? Not should I say this, but could I?
Yeah.
Not should I say it, but could I? Can the relationship stand the honesty? And if it can't, what does that tell you? Right?
Well, and I think the difference between the shoulds and the coulds, right, is that you're not making it an obligation.
That
You're
mess.
doing it from a space of love because you want to,
Yeah.
even if it's not easy that day.
And it's not going to be easy a lot of days
Mhm.
because we're all wounded. We're all imperfect. We all have our flaws. We all have our limps, right?
Mhm.
Let me talk a little bit about the word commitment.
Okay.
Most people don't know what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Jill, true or false, you're the same person today that you were 5 years ago.
Oh no, not at all.
If you go back 5 years before that, you were the same person 10 years ago as you were 5 years ago.
No,
No.
no, I'm
So
not even the same person I was yesterday, probably,
I know.
or earlier this morning.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
So if all of us, if we look at our lives in 5 year chunks, we can see that there's really substantial change. Okay, true or false, you'll change again, even more as your life
True.
continues.
True, absolutely.
True or false, you won't know when you will change.
That's probably true, but I would also say it's also false because I feel like it's every second of every day. So,
Case could be
yeah,
made.
yeah,
You don't know exactly what's going to change you or when that's going.
no. Mhm.
True or false, you don't know how you will change.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
True or false, you don't know how much you will change.
Oh, absolutely.
All you,
Well, change is in some ways as much as I'm open to changing. But even people that are closed off to changing still change. And
still
they may
change.
do it with holding on by their nails and screaming and
That's
kicking.
right. Even doing that will change you.
Yeah,
If
that's
you
right.
strive to make sure you aren't changing,
Yeah.
it will change you.
I think of it as a way like so we change on so many levels of ourselves, right? Because not only does our whole DNA system and our cells regenerate every day and change every day, but we do too. Like our personalities, our emotions, our mental processes, the way that we're making grooves in our heads, in the
Yeah,
brain.
yes.
Um, yeah, it changes all the time.
Yeah. The only constant is change.
Mhm.
So if you stand in front of a some kind of minister or person designated to marry you, and you say to your partner, I promise I will always love you.
Yeah.
Is that a promise you can make?
It's it's making we're back to the word commitment, isn't
See,
it? That even if you don't like the person that day, you're committing to be loving to them.
well,
Maybe.
that's that's what the other person hopes you're
Yeah,
making a
that
commitment.
that's the intention.
Yeah, that's the hope and the wish. And so the truth is, if I don't know you, but I want to, I'll do what it takes to put myself in a position to get to know you. If I want you to go out with me, I will make effort and I'll put myself in a position, hope that will happen. If we start dating, uh, I may want to go to bed with you. And I'm going to put forth effort and hope to meet that goal.
Mhm.
Uh, if I want you to be my steady partner, I'll do what it takes. I'll put myself in a position to do that. All of this is a choice you are making. And all of this is because you want those things to happen, right?
Mhm.
And then people do something called getting married.
Mhm.
Now I'm not with you because I want to be. It's not because I've made time to make sure that I am with you. Well, now it's like, well, I got to go home. I got, I have to. I oughta. I should. I must. I'm supposed to.
Mhm.
I got to go home. I don't have a choice. What do you call a place that you don't have a choice to leave?
Usually a prison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's jail,
Mhm.
right? Prison, something.
Mhm.
So when people do this thing called getting married, they think they're making a commitment. Mae West, uh, some may remember who she was,
Mhm.
a wonderful actress from the 30s and 40s. She said, you know, marriage is a wonderful institution, but who wants to make a commitment to an institution,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So if you end up unconsciously, unknowingly thinking that marriage is a place you can't leave because now you've made a commitment, you've just turned your marriage into prison.
Mhm.
Okay. No fun. So I don't think it's possible for people to make a commitment to promise to always love you. But what I think we can make a commitment to is something called the struggle. Not that every day is going to be hard or difficult. But if you make a commitment to the struggle, what you're saying is, I promise not to run away when things get hard. I promise to try, to really try, to work things out in this relationship before I consider any other. I can make a commitment to that, and that's honest. And if you realize that you always have the choice to leave, and that you are always then choosing to be with that person, now your marriage is no longer a prison.
How often have you relayed this wisdom to your clients?
Many, many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, many times.
What's kept you from writing a book about this? I see the self-help book in that.
Um,
I'll admit that I haven't read a ton of books about marriage, only a couple, but but it seems like that framing it that way is very unique because
uh,
it gets into the semantics that we use,
well, it
even
gets into the story.
subconsciously. Yeah.
It's into the story.
Mhm.
One of the things that I try to suggest to my clients over and over is that we're not trapped by our circumstances. We're trapped by our stories.
Mhm.
And I try to help people grow into a story that's big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've personally grown into a story that's big enough for you, or do you feel like it's always an ongoing expansion
Yeah, I
of the
guess
story?
an ongoing expansion.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know. For whatever reason, I haven't been truly motivated. I thought about it. I've been encouraged
Mhm.
to write, um, but for some reason, the motivation to do that just hasn't been there.
Good. Well, it's important to do things you feel kind of led to do as opposed to I have to, right? Because
Yeah,
the have to thing never goes well.
yeah. There. Um, let me help people with this.
Mhm.
True or false? The only things you have to do are die and pay taxes.
You have a choice even with the taxes if you want to suffer the consequences.
You can choose not to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The only thing you have to do is die.
Mhm,
Everything else is an option.
mhm,
There's no got tos. There's a whole lot of get tos.
mhm.
I don't got to, but I get to.
Yeah.
But if you tell yourself you got to, you have to, you ought to, you must, you're going to feel pressure. You're going to feel resentment.
Mhm.
You're going to feel confined and burdened. So, one of the things that I really strive to help people understand is that every single moment is a moment of choice.
Mhm.
We are choice making machines. We are never not choosing.
Mhm.
Every moment of every day, you are choosing to do or choosing not to do something.
Mhm.
But if you remember you have a choice, you have more power in the world because you have more power in yourself. All these get tos and ought tos and shoulds. Should is the single worst word in the world.
Yeah.
It's the single worst word in the world because it creates more problems than any other single word.
Yeah.
The word should simply means would like, wish. It's about our preference. But this is a quote I got from Gloria Steinem many
Mhm.
years ago. There are very, very few shoulds in the world. I wouldn't say there are none, but
Mhm.
so many fewer than we've been led to believe. So I invite you to really throw away the word should. It's almost useless and it's more of a problem creator. And instead, talk about what you would like, talk about what you could do. So for somebody to say, you should have gotten up on time, means I wish you had gotten up
Mhm.
early. You should have known better, means I wish you had remembered.
Mhm.
Could plus shame equals should.
Mhm.
That's a quote from Mike McCabe, a dear friend of mine. Could
Mhm.
plus shame equals should.
Mhm.
Every time you use the word should, you are shaming another person, even if you're pointing that should towards yourself.
Mhm.
All you're going to get is resistance. It doesn't help. It makes things worse. What should I do? Oh my God, what should I do? See,
The
that's
the options are unlimited.
you would
Yeah.
say, what could I do?
Mhm.
That's an expansive word. Options
Mhm.
won't make themselves available, as
Mhm.
opposed to what should I do? And you hope you eliminate
Yeah.
all kind of options till you discover this one little slice of just rightness.
Mhm.
Oh yes, finally, now I know what I should do. Well,
It's interesting because we are so limited by what we believe but can't see, right? Because if we have this should, like we have to do this one little narrow thing, well,
yeah,
we can't have all of the information about everything to know all the other possibilities that there were.
yeah,
And so we put these self-imposed limits, um,
yeah,
and those self-imposed limits also screw up our belief systems
yeah.
because we see beyond ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Words shape thoughts.
Mhm.
Thoughts shape reality.
Mhm.
So the world that you're living in is the result of the words you tell yourself
Yeah.
and what you think about the world.
Mhm.
That's all really arbitrary and subject to change.
Yeah.
Um, when I had a physical office, uh, I'm only working via screens now. But when I had an office, I had a stencil in the window next to the door that read, "The peace, power, passions, and possibilities store,"
Oh, nice. I like that.
because that's what I'm selling.
Yeah.
Peace, power, passion, and possibilities.
Yeah. So before we wrap up here, I know you're a big fan of Rumi
Oh,
and that you've spoken about Rumi at conferences and things. What's
yeah.
one of your favorite quotes from Rumi about love? He
Oh, gee.
has so many of them.
Yeah, so many. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not realizing how blind that was. Lovers, lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to talk to us about what you're passionate about,
Yeah,
which is humans, um, and love and the way that people see themselves in the world.
well, there's so much more
Yeah,
I'd like people to know about love.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad for the opportunity to maybe offer a few things, perhaps plant a few seeds.
And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do so? If they're looking for a therapist or they just want to reach out,
Give me a call.
you want to give your phone number, or do
Sure.
you want your email address? Or
I can miss a whole lot of emails because I
okay,
just don't check it very often. Give me a call at 734-649-7092.
okay,
Give
and
me a
that
call, shoot me a text.
That'll go in the show description too. So we'll
Sure.
make sure it's on there in case people
Sure.
don't have paper as they're listening.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
If you want to talk more, I'll be glad to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.